Question 1. In light of recent developments in kernel-level diagnostics, Michael, a network engineer, observes drop packets with the reason. Read of state in the kernel debug logs. He suspects packet reordering due to asymmetric routing. Which tool or method should Michael prioritize to verify this suspicion? A. Dump on the external interface to compare sequence numbers. B. UOLO drop to monitor NAT translations in real time. C. UFW Uniter with appropriate chain fields to visualize packet flow. D. Use netstat. RN to verify routing table inconsistencies. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. The correct approach is to UFW Uniter, which captures packet flow through the firewall kernel chains IO when dealing with. E. To state. Packet reordering is key suspect, especially in asymmetric routing. FW Uniter helps visualize if packets are arriving and leaving in the expected state in order. With TC dump can capture raw packets. It does not show inspection points. UOLO drop shows drop logs, but lacks context of entire flow. Netstat. RN only shows routes, not packet behavior. This aligns with kernel-level troubleshooting methodology in point 20. Question 2. The correlation between high CPU age and threat prevention policy misconfigurations is often overlooked. Which of the following best explains how? A poorly configured threat prevention profile can cause resource strain. A. Disable HES inspection increases CPU consumption due to lack of visibility. B. Enabling multiple emulation engines simultaneously causes overlapping scans. C. Applying threat prevention profiles globally instead of selectively increases inspection overhead. D. Using shared policy layers reduces the load balancing efficiency of threat cloud. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Global application of threat prevention profiles means every connection, regardless of sensitivity, is subjected to inspection by blades like IPS, anti-bot, and threat emulation. This dramatically increases inspection cycles and CPU usage. Best practice as per checkpoint guidelines is to apply such profiles selectively based. RSHE's inspection disables visibility if turned off. CPU multiple engines don't overlap unless misconfigured. Threat cloud efficiency is unrelated to shared policy layers. Question 3. From a practical standpoint, Rachel is troubleshooting a cluster-XL deployment in unicast mode. She notices frequent failovers despite all interfaces being up. What should she investigate first to determine the cause? A. Firewall policy mismatches across cluster members. B. Multicast to unicast configuration conflicts on switches. C. Sync interface drops due to excessive latency. D. CCP packet loss caused by switch MAC address learning behavior. Answer. Correct answer. D. Explanation. In unicast mode, cluster control protocol (CCP) packets are sent directly between members. If switches constantly update MAC address tables due to unicast traffic bouncing, they may draw CCP packets, triggering failovers. This is known behavior in unicast deployments. Unlike multicast, unicast can be problematic without static MAC entries or proper switch configuration. Policy mismatches cause failovers. Latency issues affect sync but not CCP directly. Thus, MAC learning is the core issue per cluster-XL troubleshooting guidelines. Question 4. Through careful analysis of management logs, an administrator finds that SmartConsole is intermittently disconnecting from the security management server. Which log file should they consult first for connectivity and authentication failures? A. Edbubblelog elg. B. Varlog messages. C. cpdlogpsta elg. D. Edalorlog for log. Answer. Correct answer. Explanation. Edible elg log records management delay activity including authentication, GUI client connections, and internal errors. It's the primary source for troubleshooting SmartConsole issues. Varlog messages may show system-level issues but Nedalayer specifics. EPSTAR elg relates to process startup, not runtime issue. FW log is for traffic-related logs, not management connectivity. Question 5. While examining user mode process behavior, Leon notices that the CPD process is consuming excessive CPU. He suspects internal communication failure. Which command provides the most direct insight into CPD activity and errors? A. UBD in list. B. Top. C. Tail. FF logged. Or debug. AWS will drop. Answer. Correct answer. See explanation. The CPD log contains detailed runtime information about the CPD process which handles SIC, certificates, and internal communications. Tell this log in real time to identify a messages or handshake failure. EOE in list shows process status, not detailed behavior. Topi shows EPU usage, but oil deog is kernel level, not applicable here. Question 6. In the context of advanced VPN debugging, Daniel notices that his site-to-site VPN tunnel establishes successfully but traffic doesn't pass through. Which of the following is most likely causing the issue based on checkpoint VPN troubleshooting practices? A. Phase 1 negotiation failure. B. Incorrect proxy IDs in Phase 2 configuration. C. DNS misconfiguration on the internal interface. D. NAT encapsulation disabled by default. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. If the tunnel is established but traffic doesn't flow, Phase 2 IPsec is likely misconfigured. Specifically, mismatched proxy IDs, local remote networks, cause traffic to be encrypted incorrectly or drop. Phase 1 failure prevents tunnel establishment entirely. DNS doesn't affect IPsec tunnels. NAT is enabled by default in checkpoint and used only when needed. Question 7. A detailed analysis of system behavior reveals inconsistent logging and missing entries in SmartLog. What is the most probable cause based on checkpoint R.20 logging architecture? A. Misconfigured log exporter. B. Corrupt log fileinable log suitable os crash during log indexing. D. Malfunctioning smart event correlation units. Answer. Correct answer. See explanation. The WSS is responsible for logging and policy enforcement. If it crashes during indexing or becomes unresponsive, logs may not appear in SmartLog despite being generated. Corruption near WLog usually leads to a failure to open the file. Log exporter affects external seams. Smart event is for correlation and alerts, not raw log display. Question 8. The underlying principle of coaxial distribution is to optimize multi-core utilization. What is the role of the SND, Secure Network Distributor, in this architecture? A. Encrypts VPN traffic across EPU cores. B. Allocates policy install tasks to firewall workers. C. Distributes incoming traffic to coaxial firewall instances. D. Manages traffic between sync interfaces in clusterxl. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. SND is responsible for distributing packet traffic among multiple coaxial firewall FW instances. It works with affinity settings to balance the load. It doesn't handle encryption. PPND does. Policy installation or clusterxl sync. Understanding coaxial's architecture is key to performance tuning and troubleshooting. Question 9. Contrary to popular belief, SecureXL can sometimes cause connection drops if improperly configured. In which situation should SecureXL be temporarily disabled for troubleshooting? A. When smart event correlation fails. B. When VPN tunnel drops after rekeying. C. When unexpected packet drops occur despite valid rules. D. When policy push takes excessive time. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. SecureXL performs accelerated packet inspection and can bypass deep inspection in some cases. Misconfigurations, e.g. rule matching anomalies or hardware acceleration issues may lead to packet drops not logged in regular tables. Temporarily disabling SecureXL FWAXL off helps isolate the cause. VPN and smart event are unrelated to SecureXL. Question 10. The most significant aspect of debugging a failed policy installation lies in identifying which part of the process failed. What is the recommended first step in this diagnosis? A. Run cpstat OS to check disk usage. B. UAL debug to trace firewall kernel. C. Riverdedalogfm. Elgandedalogfm. Elg. D. Examine ecrisol.com for ENS resolution issues. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. EPM. Elg and Edale. Ublogs. Reveal if the issue lies in the policy compilation EPM or installation distribution of $. They contain detailed error messages that pinpoint the failure reason. Disk space may be a symptom but not root cause. Kernel debug is irrelevant unless traffic is affected post-install. DNS issues might delay fetches but won't block installation unless SIC fails. Question 11. Given the circumstances, Susan notices frequent failover events in her clusterXL active-active environment. She suspects split brain scenario due to network misconfiguration. Which action should she take first to verify and mitigate this issue? A. Check the sync interface for packet loss and latency using cFaprob state. B. Disable the firewall on all cluster members and restart. C. Remove static MAC addresses on the switch ports connected to cluster members. D. Modify firewall policies to exclude cluster control protocol traffic. Answer. Correct answer. Explanation. Split brain occurs when cluster members lose communication via the sync interface, causing multiple active members incorrectly. The best first step is to use cFaprob state to check the health of the sync interface and CCP traffic. Packet loss or high latency here causes failovers. Disabling firewalls or removing static MACs might destabilize the cluster. Cluster control protocol traffic is essential and must be allowed, not excluded. Question 12. From the perspective of VPN troubleshooting, James is trying to establish a remote access VPN, but encounters authentication failures despite correct credentials. Which of the following is most likely the root cause? A. Expired user certificate on the endpoint. B. Misconfigured split tunnel settings blocking traffic. C. Incorrect phase 1 encryption algorithm on the gateway. D. Disable VPN blade on the security gateway. Answer. Correct answer. Explanation. Remote access VPN heavily relies on user certificates for authentication. If the user certificate is expired or revoked, authentication will fail despite valid credentials. Split tunnel settings affect traffic routing, not authentication. Phase 1 algorithms are for IPS VPN. SAP EPN blade must be enabled, but if it were disabled, no tunnel could start. Question 13. While examining system logs during an upgrade, Anita finds several entries indicating high CPU utilization related to threat prevention blade updates. Which approach should she take to minimize performance impact while maintaining protection? A. Disable all blades during business hours and re-enable at night. B. Apply blade policies selectively based on asset criticality. C. Increase logging level to debug to identify offending processes. D. Switch to manual blade update mode to control resource usage. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Applying threat prevention blades selectively based on asset criticality balances protection and performance, following checkpoint best practices. Disabling blades entirely compromises security. Increasing logging debug levels increases load further. Manual updates may reduce update-related CPU spikes but do not solve ongoing inspection overhead. Question 14. In the context of user mode process troubleshooting, David finds that after a policy push, some changes do not reflect in Smart Console, but the policy installer reports success. What should he inspect to resolve this discrepancy? A. Check for high disk EO on the management server. B. Verify SIG, secure internal communication, trust between management and gateways. C. Restart the firewall service on the gateway. D. Inspect the management server's CPU affinity settings. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. SIG establishes trust and secure communication. If broken or expired, policy changes won't propagate correctly, causing Smart Console to display stale data despite successful installs. Disk or CPU affinity affects performance but not propagation accuracy. Restarting firewall might temporarily help but is not root cause. Question 15. Upon closer examination, Mike observes that after enabling SecureXL, certain encrypted VPN tunnels drop intermittently. What is the best explanation and troubleshooting step? A. SecureXL bypasses encryption checks. Disabling SecureXL can confirm this. B. VPN blades are incompatible with SecureXL and must be disabled. C. SecureXL requires kernel patches to support encrypted traffic. D. Firewall policies must be recreated after enabling SecureXL. Answer. Correct answer. Explanation. SecureXL accelerates traffic but may bypass certain deep inspections, including encryption-decryption checks. This can cause encrypted VPN tunnels to drop if SecureXL is misaligned with VPN operations. Disabling SecureXL FWAXL off helps verify if it causes the problem. VPN blades are compatible with SecureXL by design. Kernel patches are included in R.20 by default. Policies do not require recreation. Question 16. How might one explain the cause of intermittent Smart Console performance degradation when multiple administrators are connected simultaneously to the management server? A. Smart Console cache corruption. B. Insufficient management server memory resources leading to process contention. C. Firewall policy syntax errors affecting the GUI rendering. D. Network latency between management and gateways. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Multiple concurrent Smart Console sessions increase management server load, especially memory and CPU. Insufficient resources cause process contention, slowing GUI responsiveness. Cache corruption causes display issues, but not performance degradation. Policy syntax errors block policy installation, not GUI rendering. Network latency affects remote access, not server-side GUI speed. Question 17. When considering threat prevention troubleshooting, Jessica notes that the anti-bot blade is failing to update signatures properly. Which of the following would be the best initial step to resolve this? A. Reinstall the threat prevention package from the checkpoint portal. B. Check the communication status with ThreatCloud ICP stat threat. C. Disable antivirus blade to reduce resource contention. D. Clear all anti-bot logs to free disk space. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Antibot relies on ThreatCloud communication to update signatures and policy. CP-stat threat shows status of blade communication with ThreatCloud. Connectivity issues, blocked ports or expired licenses often cause update failures. Reinstalling packages is drastic without diagnosis. Disabling app doesn't impact anti-bot updates. Clearing logs is rarely effective. Question 18. Considering the evidence, Paul is tasked with troubleshooting the FWUnit output showing no packets captured on the FWUnit chain even though traffic is confirmed externally. What is the most plausible cause? A. The firewall kernel is not loaded properly due to policy corruption. B. FWUnit was started without root privileges. C. The firewall interface is incorrectly assigned or down. D. The logging level is set too low to capture FWUnit chain packets. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. If traffic is confirmed but FWUnit shows no packets on FWUnit inbound inspection, likely the firewall interface is down or misassigned, so no packets reach the firewall kernel. Policy corruption or kernel loading issues cause different symptoms, e.g. no firewall FWUnit requires root but would error out otherwise. Logging levels affect log and FWUnit captures. Question 19. The fundamental question is, why would a management high availability setup fail to synchronize policies after a failover event? Which factor is most likely responsible? A. Mismatched management server licenses. B. IP address conflicts on the management cluster nodes. C. Firewall policy version mismatch. D. Disabled SIC communication between HUM members. Answer. Correct answer. D. Explanation. SIC communication is critical for management to exchange policy and configuration. If SIC trust is broken or disabled between cluster nodes, synchronization fails after failover. Licensing mismatches don't affect synchronization directly. IP conflicts cause network problems, but not specifically synchronization failures. Policy versions sync automatically. Question 20. In terms of log export troubleshooting, a customer reports that logs fail to appear in their external SIEM solution despite Smart Console showing entries. Which is the most effective diagnostic step? A. Restart the log exporter daemon on the management server. B. Verify API communication between log exporter and SIEM using CP-stat API. C. Clear all log files, enable the log to reset. D. Increase log exporter verbosity in configuration files. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Log exporter uses is to communicate with external SIEM solutions. CP-stat API provides diagnostics and API communication, health, authentication, and errors. Restarting the daemon may temporarily help but doesn't diagnose root cause. Clearing logs may cause data loss. Increasing verbosity aids troubleshooting but is secondary. Question 21. Taking into account the architecture of GUI-OS, a system administrator notices that their pull directory is missing several critical logs after a reboot. What is the most likely cause for this behavior? A. The firewall was not properly stopped before reboot, causing log corruption. B. GUI-OS automatically rotates and deletes logs on reboot to save disk space. C. Log files are stored in RAM and are cleared during reboot unless configured otherwise. D. User permission enable or restrict log file creation. Answer. Correct answer. See explanation. GUI-OS used TAFS RAM-based file systems for some log directories by default, meaning logs stored in a log might be volatile and lost on reboot unless persistent logging is configured. Proper shutdown does not prevent this. Automatic rotation deletes old logs but does not clear all on reboot. User permissions can prevent new logs but wouldn't delete existing ones. Question 22. When faced with a complex NAT issue causing packet drops, Greg decides to analyze the kernel connection table. Which command should he use to check active NAT translations and associated states? Say OEL contub, B OEL at OEL debug plus drop D, CP stat NAT. Answer. Correct answer. Explanation OEL contub. S shows active connection states including NAT translations in the kernel. This detailed insight is essential for troubleshooting dropped or misrouted packets in NAT scenario. OEL shows not a valid mandor TL debug plus drop shows drop reasons but not connection state. CP stat NAT provides summary NAT blade statistics, not detailed state info. Question 23. The interrelationship between CoreXL and SecureXL can impact firewall performance. Which scenario best describes a conflict between these two features? A. SecureXL accelerates packet processing, but CoreXL disables it by default. B. CoreXL splits traffic across cores, which can cause SecureXL acceleration to be inconsistent if affinity settings are misconfigured. C. SecureXL and CoreXL cannot run simultaneously on the same security gateway. D. CoreXL handles VPN encryption while SecureXL manages stateful inspection. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. CoreXL distributes firewall load across EPU cores and SecureXL accelerates packet processing per core. If EPU affinity settings are misconfigured, SecureXL may not consistently accelerate traffic across cores, causing performance irregularities. Both features run simultaneously by design. CoreXL doesn't handle VPN encryption, PPND does. SecureXL accelerates packet inspection, exclusive to stateful inspection. Question 24. While analyzing a firewall or TL debug output, Maria sees repeated policy error messages that coincide with failed connection attempts. What does this indicate and what is her best course of action? A. The policy has syntax errors. She should ruin FWC installation after validation. B. The connection is blocked due to policy rules. She should review and adjust the rule base. C. The firewall kernel is corrupted. Reboot is necessary. D. The management server is unreachable, causing policy enforcement issues. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Policy error in debug output often means traffic was blocked due to firewall rules, not syntax errors. Reviewing the rule base to verify rule order, logging, and exceptions helps resolve legitimate blockages. Syntax errors would prevent policy installation. Kernel corruption would cause system instability. Management server connectivity issues affect policy push, not real-time enforcement. Question 25. In what ways can an incorrectly configured sync interface in a ClusterXL environment affect state synchronization, and which symptoms are likely to appear? A. Duplicate MAC addresses leading to cluster IP unflicks. B. State table inconsistencies causing connection drops during failover. C. Excessive CPU usage on all cluster members. D. Logs not being generated for synchronized states. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. The sync interface transfers state tables between ClusterXL members. Misconfigurations or poor connectivity cause state table inconsistencies, which manifest as drop connections or failover instability. Duplicate MAC issues are layer 2 problems unrelated here. EPU which is affected by processing load, not sync config. Logs typically still generate normally. Question 26. The question remains whether packet drops related to NAT are due to missing entries or incorrect translation. In firewall kernel troubleshooting, which kernel debug flag best helps isolate NAT-related issues, a OEL debug plus RABA OEL debug plus OEL debug plus COND OEL debug plus EP. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation OEL debug plus NAT flag enables detailed NAT translation debug messages which are critical for diagnosing translation errors, missing NAT entries, or improper mapping causing drops. Plus drop shows all drops but not specific to NAT. Plus cons is for connection tracking. Plus VPN focuses RPM related debug. Question 27. Based on the information, if a mobile access VPN client cannot connect and the logs show authentication failure but credentials are verified correct, which troubleshooting step is most appropriate? A. Verify client device time and date settings against the security gateway. B. Check phase 2 VPN encryption settings on the gateway. C. Do HES inspection on the client side. D. Restart the management server. Answer. Correct answer. Explanation. Mobile access VPN relies on certificates and Kerberos tokens, which are time-sensitive. Time skew between client and gateway can cause authentication failures despite correct credentials. Phase 2 encryption settings and management server restarts do not affect client authentication. Direct HES inspection is unrelated to authentication failure. Question 20. When analyzing threat emulation failures, Kevin notices that the process consistently times out on large file scans. Which approach best aligns with Checkpoint's recommendations to resolve this? A. Increase timeout values for the threat emulation blade. B. Disable threat emulation for large file types in policy. C. Add exceptions for large files to be scanned only by antivirus. D. Use dedicated threat emulation server cluster. Answer. Correct answer. D. Explanation. Large files can cause timeout issues in threat emulation, which is resource intensive. Checkpoint recommends using dedicated threat emulation servers or clusters to offload scanning. Increasing timeout may delay detection but not solve underlying resource bottlenecks. Disabling or selectively scanning large files reduces security coverage. Question 29. From a historical standpoint, why is it critical to properly configure and maintain secure internal communication between the security management server and gateways? A. It encrypts all management traffic, preventing man-in-the-middle attacks. B. It facilitates policy compilation on the gateway itself. C. It is responsible for synchronizing OS updates across devices. D. It enables logging on external seams. Answer. Correct answer. Explanation. SIC provides mutual authentication and encryption of management traffic, essential to prevent interception or unauthorized control. Without SIC, policy pushes, certificate exchanges, and API communications are insecure. Policy compilation happens on the management server, not the gateway. OS updates and seam logging use other mechanisms. Question 30. While evaluating the Merit OEL Contub, Alex wants to filter connections to identify all sessions using a specific service port experiencing drops. Which combined approach should he use? A. OEL Contub as piped through grep for the port, then correlate OEL debug plus drop. B. RusCP stack cons with verbose mode and filter by port. C. Revided log for connection drops on the service port. D. Use top to find processes consuming CPU due to that port. Answer. Correct answer. Explanation OEL Contub S lists active connection states with ports and flags. Piping through grep filters by port. Correlated OEL debug plus drop shows why packets for that port are dropped. CP stack cons provide summary stats, not detailed drop. EWLog logs drops but less granular in kernel state. Top shows process CPU, not connection states.